In this world, you're either the hunter or the hunter's Twinkie little brother. So Aiden, what's the plot of Kraven the Hunter?
Kraven the Hunter is the final movie in the Sony Pictures Spider-Man officially licensed villain mockbuster cinematic universe. It follows the story of one of Spider-Man's arch nemesis, Kraven the Hunter, but in this movie he's just a good guy superhero. He's a little boy in Africa, and his dad is Russell Crowe and says, "You need to kill animals like me because I'm evil." And then Kraven gets attacked by a giant lion, and a little girl who happens to be there learns tarot card magic and gives him a magic potion. And then he turns into the superhuman Kraven the Hunter and hunts down mob bosses after a 40-minute flashback, in which Aaron Taylor Johnson shows up as little as contractually possible. And then his little twink brother, who always calls Russell Crowe Papa, gets kidnapped by the Rhino, who's some guy who wears a camelback and can unplug it from himself to turn into a giant cartoon rhino. And then, after a bunch of action scenes that are essentially pointless, the rhino hunts down Kraven to Russia, where he lives, and he punches the big cartoon rhino until he dies, and then his brother becomes the chameleon and can turn into a bobbleheaded version of Aaron Taylor Johnson on a little twink body. So Connor, what'd you think of Kraven the Hunter and the Sony Pictures blah 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 universe eulogy?
I thought Kraven the Hunter was schizophrenic and awful, like the other Sony Pictures universe of Marvel movies.
Right on time, Obi.
I'm going to start this off to put this in perspective by ranking the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel movies. And number 1 is Venom, which is like lower level okay. Like, it's not good. It's very, 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 very low end of okay. And then you got Venom 2, which is bad,
Yeah.
but the second least worst of the Sony
Woody Harrelson wears a funny
movies. Then I'm gonna have to go Venom 3, which is far worse than Venom 1 and Venom 2.
And unfinished.
And unfinished. Number 4, easily Madam Web. Madam Web is mostly just pretty bad the whole time, and then is occasionally hilarious, like the superhero dramatic ending. Following Madam Web, I mean, there's 2 very viable options for the last one, but I'm gonna give it to Kraven. Kraven is not the worst, but it very well could be. And then, of course, the worst is Morbius with Jared Leto going to the polio clinic and stuff like that. This movie, more than Madam Web, even, which I think was very, very, very Morbius core, is pretty close. First off, in the flashback sequence, which must have been filmed like first, because everyone uses really terrible Russian accents. For the movie itself, they dropped this.
Well,
but
Russell Crowe still does a terrible Russian accent.
Russell Crowe still does a terrible Russian accent, but Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, no, I'm not doing that. and they didn't make the brother do it either. Okay, so the plot structure of this movie is nonsensical. The movie starts off with a mysterious pilot picking up Kraven after he kills somebody in a prison. And you're like, okay, so we get it. He's badass. So he gets arrested and sent to this top secret unbreakable prison to prove how powerful he is. And he kills a mob boss who's irrelevant to the plot at all. But he kills him. Well, he's moderately relevant because he kills
The voodoo woman's...
What was the voodoo woman's name? She had something really stupid, like
Calypso.
Calypso. He kills his doctor woman Calypso's, or lawyer woman Calypso's arch nemesis to be introduced. But then his mysterious airplane pilot says, not the first time, not the last time I'm going to have to bail you out. I'm a mysterious pilot woman. And you're like, I wonder who the mysterious pilot woman is. But she never shows up again. Forget about the fucking pilot woman.
I like how the pilot just sits in a snowstorm for 3 days.
And then
Kraven's
you
in
start
prison.
to forget the actual point of the movie. Because the next 40 minutes is Kraven hunting in the wilderness with his dad and brother. And then it cuts back to modern day. His brother went from very similar to Kraven, just slightly more cowardice, I guess, to now he became a flamboyantly gay twink boy who Kraven wants to protect whenever he's in the movie.
But then he becomes straight at the end of the movie.
Yeah, in the end of the movie, he becomes a straight guy who could switch his face on command from a mysterious New York doctor. Presumably the same mysterious unnamed New York doctor that changed the face.
I looked it up and it's apparently some guy named the Jackal.
Oh, the Jackal. Okay, the Jackal's the guy who made the clone.
I guess the Jackal would be the main villain of the Kraven
so I
trilogy.
think they were setting it up because the Jackal created Peter Parker's clones in the comics. Like Ben Reilly and Kane Parker.
So he would have to like hunt down all the Spider-Man clones in the third movie to get to the Jackal.
Yeah, and that's when he would do the last hunt and blast his head off. Because the director's like, my movie's actually good, see it, and the last hunt, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, so he kind of just like, the plot after this kind of stumbles because it doesn't actually have a plot. Kraven...
I like when he
fucks around and shit happens, basically.
He talks to the lawyer lady and she's like, you're a murderer, that's really fucked up. And he's like, yeah, so what? Then she's like, yeah, I guess you're right.
He's like,
just helps him.
I'm the hunter. I'm Kraven. But I'm also the hunter.
But also no one knows that his name is Kraven and he kills anyone who knows his name is Kraven.
Also, the Daily Bugle keeps putting on the front page, like, his kill count. It'll be like, mysterious... legendary hunter, unknown man of myth, the hunter kills 7th victim. It's like, how did you know Russian prison was Kraven? How did you know any of this time?
They all have different modus operandi, because it's
he goes and breaks into a prison and stabs a guy.
And then there's one where he poisons a guy on a boat.
Guys
how do you link these cases together?
One of the ones that the Bugle mentions is when he shoots 2 guys with crossbows. It's just a clusterfuck, and the acting's really bad and weird. So the Chameleon, Kraven's brother, sings Sony music group songs perfectly. And they're like, how do you do that? And he's like, I'm a chameleon. And people are like, it sounded like you just fucking lip synced the studio recording. So Sony really pushed like random, like, whatever they had, like Shawn Mendes and Tony Bennett, well, whoever they had that they wanted to put in this movie.
I like the part
they were like,
where
here's
Russell
the catalog of Sony music, pick which one the Chameleon will lip sync.
Yeah, then I like the part where the Chameleon is singing Tony Bennett songs, and then Russell Crowe, of all people, who's like this criminal mastermind who likes killing things a lot, is like having a casual conversation about how much he loves Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
It's really fucking weird.
Yeah, but the thing too was, what's odd is...
Hi, mister.
So we know how Kraven got his powers. He's bitten by a ginormous lion of legend that no hunter could ever kill. But he had an opportunity to kill because the lion respected him and didn't want to kill him. But then his dad starts shooting the lion. So the lion gets scared and attacks Kraven and bites him. And I thought it was a radioactive lion, but then he gets pulled off, and Voodoo Lady sees it and runs out there and then starts dumping green Nickelodeon slime in his mouth, and I guess it's like a voodoo witch thing.
So he comes back to LSD so much that he comes back to life and he can turn his eyes red.
And eventually the movie runs long enough so the villains decide to kidnap his brother, and
I like when he gets detective vision like
there's
Batman.
Two villains.
In on clues.
There's one villain who I don't know if they actually ever named in the movie, but you can't really tell if he has super speed powers or like hypnotize powers or magic powers or what, but he keeps killing people.
Yeah.
And then Kraven gets his ass beat by this guy, but then out of nowhere, Voodoo Magic Lady comes and shoots him with a crossbow, and
He's
then
some
dumps
guy called,
more Slime Time Nickelodeon.
I was looking him up too, and he's called the Foreigner. And like as far as I could tell, in the comics, he was just like some spy guy who was in like spy comics, like some Agents of Fury adjacent shit in like the 70s, but for some reason
he must have like premiered in Spider-Man or something.
As far as the Wikipedia article, or as far as I skimmed it, he doesn't have like whatever weird power he has in this movie where he can count to 3 and then like teleport or like slow down time or something.
Something happens. No one can
hypnotize
really figure
people.
out.
They don't really explain it. He'll just look at people and then count to 3 and walk past them.
His motivations are also virtually unknown, but the criminals come out of the woods because the Foreigner says, "I'm gonna kill Kraven, and then I'll meet up with you guys back at the cars." And then the guys come out the woods and say, "The Foreigner killed Kraven," and then they all hop in the car and start driving off without the Foreigner. Which they would only drive off without the Foreigner if they had known that he died. But then Kraven's really alive. So then the Rhino says, "It's Rhinin time. It's time to Rhine." And then he pulls the
he pulls his
the thing out,
off.
and he turns into a giant rhino. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson just thrashes the guy, no competition.
Yeah.
And the Rhino dies. But all this to say, the movie's like confused and convoluted, and like when they finally make the brother the chameleon, they just like superimpose Aaron Taylor Johnson's face on his, and it looks fucking horrible.
Yeah.
The movie looks
the Rhino
awful.
looks fucking horrible too.
Its editing is fucking terrible because most scenes just kind of like end abruptly, and you're like, what?
The Rhino looks like an even worse version of the psoriasis monster from Suicide Squad.
And one thing they keep saying, because I think they were really fascinated with the fact, so Kraven steals a list of gang leaders that is neatly written and placed into a gang leader's desk for some reason. And he takes this list and says, "Wow, now I have a list of people I want to kill." But Kraven never looks at the list again, and the list isn't important to Kraven at all. But he knows he has a list now of who he wants to kill. And then the list becomes legendary somehow. And all of the villains knows about it. Well, and somehow every villain will say, they say that once you're on Kraven's list, you never get off the list. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean? Like,
well, also like,
are you saying like Kraven won't make an amendment and take you off the list? Or if you're always on the list, that means he's never killing you. Like, what does that mean?
I also like,
and they keep repeating it like it's a badass line, but it literally makes no sense.
Everyone calls him the Hunter.
Yeah,
and he's the only person who calls himself Kraven, and the only person alive who knows that he calls himself Kraven is the lawyer lady. But then Russell Crowe sells him out to the Rhino for some reason, and puts like a USB stick under the Rhino's door, and the Rhino plugs it in, and it just says his name's Kraven, so that everyone will call him Kraven because that's the name of the movie.
Yeah.
Somehow Russell Crowe decided that he knew his name was Kraven or
They're
something.
like, Kraven's so cunning, no one can solve the crime, and there's no leads. But somehow Russell Crowe got a hold of the security footage that shows it's Kraven, and then on the bottom it says Kraven the Hunter TM in association with Marvel. And then, so Kraven kind of tiddly fucks around. They decided they were going to make it R, so some of the kills are kind of okay. Some of the action is edited okay, but like it's really not enough to save it when the movie is fucking nonsensical.
Yeah.
To a Morbius degree. There's just a lot of like
maybe
cringe
the funniest
and weird
nonsense
moments.
scene. Maybe the funniest nonsense scene is when Kraven and the girl are walking through the woods and he's giving her exposition.
And then
And then all of a sudden a tiger jumps out of the woods and starts attacking him and he beats the shit out of it so there can be an action scene. Then he's like, "Sorry about that, I got bored." And then they just go on with the exposition. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah. Well, then the tiger does come back, you know. Unlike the pilot, the tiger feeds him something. Because in the climax, I guess
Kraven is implied to have like weird animal control powers where he can like make bears kill his father.
He has hunter vision, which allows him to see stuff.
Yeah, it's like
and it'll
Arkham
scan into
vision.
stuff for no reason. Like at one point, his brother's kidnapped, and one of the goons throws a cigarette on the ground on the way out, and then it detective visions in on the cigarette and holds there for like 3 seconds, and you're like, is he gonna like sniff the cigarette and like catch the guy's scent off of it?
No,
but then he just jumps off a building and starts chasing the car on foot. And the cigarette, why they zoomed into it, who knows, you know?
I also like how
I don't understand. But yeah, then the
right
fucking,
before the big
I was gonna
climax.
say the fucking ox keep coming at, or the bison or whatever the fuck those are, keep coming for him. And then in the climax, they ring up around him and Rhino for no reason. Like he's not Aquaman. He can't just control the animals. But they're
in this universe.
They're running.
He told the bear to kill his dad, and he told the buffalo to, I guess, like crash into the truck and make it fall over in a way that magically doesn't kill his brother or the rhino. And then he fights the horrible CGI monster. And right before the big final battle, for some reason, his girlfriend's like hanging out in a t-shirt and shorts. The lawyer lady. And then between scenes, she's just suddenly in like a dominatrix outfit.
Yeah, she puts on the episode 2 Padme sexy dominatrix outfit for no reason. And then I don't think she's in that when she's fucking around in the woods.
Yeah, she is.
Oh, she's still
wearing
dressed as a dominatrix?
Yeah, he's about to get killed, but he gets shot by the Tomorrow Man or whatever the hell his name is, the foreigner. Is using magic powers on him and shoots him with magic bullets that make him hallucinate spiders because he's scared of spiders so that he can line up with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's the only reference to Spider-Man in this movie.
Yeah.
Unlike Madam Web and Morbius, which revel in being very loosely related to Spider-Man.
Yeah. This movie, they're like, we gotta tone it down. We'll do something tasteful like... The hunter who literally fights fucking lions and sleeps in the woods is scared of the spider, one of the most common things you could
he somehow intuited that his mom had like schizophrenia before she killed herself and was scared of spiders, and he somehow intuited this or something. I don't know, like that's what his vision implies. But then right before he gets killed by the magic time warp man, his sexy dominatrix girlfriend comes and shoots the guy with an arrow.
Yeah.
And she's like, see, I told you I knew how to shoot an arrow. And he's like, damn. And then she just says, I have my secrets too. And it's never elaborated on.
Well, I don't think she's ever seen again after this.
No,
there's
she's
no
out
like
of the
wrap-up scene with her.
No, there's no wrap-up scene. Once
there's 2 or 3
right after the rhino ends,
but not that's not one of them.
right after Kraven kills the rhino, it just cuts to black, and then it says 1 year later, and then there's the scene.
He kills his daddy, and then it cuts to 1 year later.
He kills his dad, then it's 1 year later.
He kills his papa,
and
as everyone calls him.
His papa. And then his brothers become straight and can superimpose his face over him. And then his brother's like, you should go check the house, Dad left something for you. And then he opens a box, and it has a letter on it, and Russell Crowe goes, I left you my most treasured possession, and it's like a fucking... the Kraven jacket, and he puts it on and does the pose.
Yeah, but he does the poster pose to line out the movie, but he notices that the lion that bit him, the head was taken off the wall. His papa made a jacket out of that lion that he loved so dearly and became a vigilante crime fighter as a result of. And then now he can wear the lion that gave the radioactive lion that gave him lion powers. But then I was thinking, why didn't the liquid LSD, so the first time it gave him lion powers, presumably, and also like the power to talk to animals or whatever, and predator vision, fine. But why not the second time? He got shot to death, and then he takes it. Why didn't he have like the power of lead?
Well, I think the first time, I think at first he didn't have the power to talk to animals, because he didn't really control them, and the tiger attacked him. But then the second time, after he gets shot...
I don't think he has that. I think the animals just fuck with him because he's the tiger. He's the alpha of the woods or whatever.
Yeah, but the bear thing is too coincidental. It seems like he told
so
the bear,
was when the
my
fucking
papa.
stampede happens around him and
Like,
Rhino, but they don't explain it.
But the
It's a Sony
buffalo,
Pictures
the buffalo
movie.
and the bear happen after he drinks his second dose of LSD. So
you're thinking the second dose of LSD.
Yeah, and
souped up the powers.
every movie he could take another dose and get another power.
He could juice up when he's at his lowest point because he
then
dies twice in this movie.
The jackal could, in the third movie, presumably Kraven the Hunter would fight Ben Reilly and kill the jackal, and then Ben Reilly would be like, "I'm a good guy."
Well, the
now.
director's like, unlike those other shitty fucking Sony movies, mine's good, so you should really watch it. And the third movie will be The Last Hunt, which is sad, but it's gonna be so satisfying to tell that story. And I presume like he'd shoot himself in the face, and his girlfriend would like dump it on his like brain matter or something, and then he'd come back the strongest.
Yeah.
And,
Well, my presumption. I have a presumption here. From what you said, the jackal's the clone guy, so I think what they're gonna do is go really ballsy with it, and he probably wouldn't kill himself. But like Ben Reilly, at the end, he like frees Ben Reilly from the jackal, and then Ben Reilly's the one who has to fight the Sinister Six in the weird fucking Sony Marvel villain cinematic universe, and like fight Morbius and fucking Michael Keaton.
Well, they could
evil
do
again
Ben
for some
Reilly and
reason.
Kane, but Ben Reilly is going to be Nicolas Cage's character in Spider Noir.
I can just have another Ben.
I wonder
Reilly.
if
I don't give a
Spider
shit.
Noir was supposed to be connected to the Sonyverse. Well, I think that's owned by Amazon. I think
I think Spider Noir is just its own weird fucking
Amazon
thing.
wants their own superhero stuff. So like they got after Warner Brothers is like, we don't want to do this J.J. Abrams shit. They took Cape Crusader on, and then I think they probably took Spider Noir because
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Sony's pride went, either Sony or Disney's pride went.
They can drag out the boys forever.
Yeah.
The boys and
Invincible.
The boys and Invincible. The
And
same
Batman
show
the Cape
twice.
Crusader. And now they're going to have a show in association with Marvel.
I like how Invincible and the boys are the same show on the same streaming service.
Yeah, well. Anyways, I also think it kind of fundamentally misunderstands Kraven. Kraven's just, he's a hunter and he's a douchebag. He's not really a villain at first, but then he's like, I'll fucking kill Spider-Man easy, and then he doesn't kill Spider-Man, so he just really wants to kill Spider-Man. That's his whole gambit there. I don't
mean,
see
to
how
be
you
fair-
transition him from, because this is just the Punisher in a leopard leotard, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, they also turned Morbius into some weird, like, hero who fights evil
Morbius.
vampires
I mean,
or
that's
something.
kind of the inherent problem is, like, when you make a villain movie, like, what the fuck are they going to actually do? Especially, the other problem, too, is Spider-Man's like, well, with Spider-Man, they're like, well, okay, we'll team up with the MCU. They can have Spider-Man and we won't use him, and we'll just make a bunch of money to let them make movies. We'll distribute them, whatever. Marvel will do whatever because they want Spider-Man. That's fine. And then somehow the deal is like, well, you can't use Spider-Man on the solo movies, but we can't stop you from making them. So they said, well, we can make more money off Spider-Man on this with the side hustle of making Marvel Mockbusters, but the only thing we have available to us is Spider-Man associated characters. And like Venom kind of makes sense because Venom was like a villain for a couple arcs, and then they decided like
He's too cool.
he's an
and they're gonna-
anti-hero and shit, and he fights more eviler symbiotes.
Well, the
so
other-
now eventually
another-
he's just basically a good guy until it's
Another
convenient for
problem
him to be evil.
with this whole thing is that since you have to make all the villains good guys so that they can have their own movie,
Well, then they have to
Every
fight
sing-
the lesser villains.
every
that you don't
single
wanna make
movie you have to
spin-offs
burn
for.
through two villains because you have to have a worse villain for the good villain to fight. But then eventually, like, I don't know what they were forecasting on this, but like eventually they would have to take all these characters they turned into heroes
Well,
and have them be evil but I guess this movie was setting up some convoluted evil Spider-Man clone plot with the Jackal or something.
yeah, maybe. But here's the thing, like, I don't understand why they didn't just, like, do, like, a Silk or like, a Scarlet Spider spin-off movie, or, like, at least hit, like, the Spider-Man spin-off characters and just be like, okay, you can have Spider-Man, because we want the free MCU money, but, like, if we make a shitty Silk movie who's just Asian lady Spider-Man, like, what's the harm? And if people like it, then you got...
I mean, they did that with Madam Web.
I mean, yeah, you're better off. Madam Web was the only attempt they did at, like, a good guy spin-off, and that was just fucking schizophrenic and weird, too. And they underused the fucking point people came for, which is the Spider-Women being Spider-Women. And they saved it for one, like, non-canon dream sequence or whatever.
Yeah, that would be so
and you had evil Spider-Man. But that is kind of the problem, is, like, the A-list villains are gonna have to be at Marvel. So no Doc Ock, no Sandman, no Green Goblin, Lizard. Venom is the only exception, because they're like, okay, whoever greenlit Venom's like, we need some sort of backbone. Venom was kind of a backbone, but you made it the first 2 movies before you planned on any of these sequels, or before any of them got off the ground. And then Tom Hardy's like, I'm done after 3. I'm not doing these shitty movies anymore. Then you're just kind of fucked unless you want to like introduce a different one. I don't really understand how the rights works, but you're basically just burning all the B and C villains, because you take a B villain, and that's who the movie's based on. You take a C movie, C villain, and that's who they kill. And if they're feeling creative, like in this movie, you'll just take some like unknown one-off villain, like the Foreigner. Like there's a million of those, so like why not?
Yeah, you can just. It's a
like why not just use like the Enforcers or something? The Enforcers, great C villain.
The star of this movie is an A- tier Spider-Man villain who has one very famous comic. And then the villain, the Rhino, is like a B-, where everyone just thinks he's goofy.
Yeah.
And they're like, we need some other guy here. And they just picked some fucking spy guy from a comic in the 70s who appeared like 3 times and gave him some weird power.
Yeah, Kraven
doesn't make any sense.
Kraven and Rhino are like B villains because they're famous for being interesting looking,
Rhino
and like
was
being in a lot of stories and being backup characters on the Sinister Six. So that's kind of what it is. I mean that they're more associated than some of the more minor villains. That's what they have going for them.
Well,
but it kind of misunderstands. I think the closest was the Chameleon, who was like Kraven's manservant, and they're like, actually, it's his fucking brother. Yeah. And they really got horny over that idea, and they ran with it. And like, at least the Chameleon, but the Chameleon, instead of like actually having any goals, he's just like some fruity coward. And
yeah,
then
but he gets scared straight.
He does.
Literally.
He gets so scared he becomes straight and then takes over his father's criminal enterprise. And then Kraven's like, I'm going to have to kill you for this. And then he says, but not right now. And then he leaves.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you got your official Kraven TM super suit back at the house. If you want to drop by, it should be like somewhere in like, you know.
It'll be in a giant, very brightly lit, clean box.
They're like, it's in Dad's like sitting loafing room next to his office, and he's like, okay. Cool.
Everything else
like,
in the
it's
house
kind of
is
by
gone.
like, it's like to the left of like where that like pile of Dad's shit is. You know how he just kind of had that like junk pile there. It's like to the left of it. There's gonna be a handwritten note by him, giving you the Kraven coat. So. You can grab that if you want. I'll go when you're not around, so it's not awkward since you just threatened to murder me 2 seconds ago.
It's really nice that Russell Crowe left that in the one room that they filmed the scene in the mansion before.
Also, the gonads of Sony, they'd be like, people were like, this is the greatest movie. He just kicked Rhino's ass. Like, everyone was having a great time, a hoot and a holler. And then they're like, for the next movie, we're setting up the goddamn Chameleon, who in this movie was a pussyfooting coward the whole time, but is now not. And also, I want to point out, like, no one in this movie really looks like movie stars. Like, I think they just kind of, like, took whatever schlub off the street, because everyone just looks weird and ugly.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, fucking weird-looking people.
Like, every villain background character just looks like some fucking weird-looking guy.
Yeah, they were probably just, like, going around the streets of Ontario, wherever they filmed this.
Probably.
Toronto, and being like, hey, homeless guy, you want to make $20 to play Russian security guard? And it's like some skinny frog-eyed man.
Yeah, I don't know, it was pretty weird. So anyways, Kraven was fucking horrible.
the Somalian guy with the really bad hairline who has like 5 foreheads, who's like the Rhino's, I don't know.
I think Kraven's teaser trailer. I think so. Kraven was delayed a number of times. Kraven's teaser trailer came out.
Yeah, I remember the first screenshot of the Rhino. It was very funny. I think he looks different in the first trailer. Or maybe it was just so blurry that it was hard to tell how... I mean, he looked fucking awful in the final production, but he looked also differently awful in the original teaser. The Rhino looks really bad. He has like a... His horn just like comes out of his forehead, but he looks like... He looks like the Killer Croc from the Suicide Squad, where he's just like a big guy, but he has a dildo sticking out of his head. And he's like a gray CGI monster with the actor's face superimposed over it. It's very funny.
Kraven the Hunter got its first poster. I mean, I think it had a release date that was like early, because I remember
it got pushed back once.
It got pushed back, yeah. It was supposed to come out in like October of 2023, and then it got delayed like a year.
Yeah.
And a half. Yeah, it was pretty fucking awful. So, Aiden, do you have anything to add about Kraven the Hunter?
I think we touched on everything. I would like to say...
What's your Sony universe of Marvel Mockbusters in loose association with Marvel ranking? It's based on the 6 entries that made up this grand saga that...
Number 1 is Venom 1, which is an okay movie, and Tom Hardy does a funny voice in it, which makes it more amusing. I really don't remember Venom 2. They kind of, like...
That's the one where these...
I know that Woody Harrelson wears the Chucky wig.
They fight in the church. They fight in the big church.
Also, another problem, a little off topic, I'll get back to the ranking, but since all these characters are villains, they don't have any villains of their own to fight, except for Venom, who has Carnage, who they wasted in the second movie.
Yeah.
And then in Venom 1 and 3, he just fights other shit. And then... in Madam Web, they fight some guy who
Ezekiel.
is Spider-Man.
He's in like one arc in like 2007.
At least Kraven got the Rhino. That's all I'm saying. Morbius just fights the other polio vampire.
Yeah, they were willing. They gave one to.
They
were willing to sacrifice the villain for.
I think
they were confident in Kraven.
I think they should have looped back around and had Rhino played by.
Paul Giamatti?
By Paul Giamatti. They should have brought that Rhino back. I like how Paul Giamatti Rhino is in all the trailers and then he's in the movie for exactly what you see in the trailer.
In Amazing Spider-Man too.
Venom is the best one. If I'm doing like a ranking of enjoyability, this one is probably second. I thought this movie was very funny and weird. And like
its action is certainly probably the second best under the I mean the action is fairly well done if I had to give anything to it.
Yeah, it's okay.
If you want to see the most stupid fucking schizophrenic story ever, there's like moderately okay action.
Then I'll probably go with Venom 2, even though I don't remember it, because I'm just assuming that it was better than the others.
I gave Venom 2 is the only other Sony Marvel's movie that I didn't give a half star to, besides Venom 1. I gave it 1.5. So I think it sits squarely in bad, but not as bad.
Number 4 is Madam Web, purely off of being very funny and schizophrenic, but not as funny as Kraven. There's something kind of amusing about Kraven that I can't put my finger on. I think it's the fact that every character except Kraven reads their lines like they're phonetically, which makes every scene amusing. And also, like, Russell Crowe wears this really stupid fucking ascot the whole movie, and has the worst Russian accent
Not ever. To throw you off your list, but I think one thing that I always thought was great about Sony is the directors they hired were all very confident in their movies. All 6 movies were hired by very confident directors.
Yeah, no.
Well, Venom 1 just kind of came out. It was just a movie. And then Venom 2, Andy Serkis is like, I'm changing the game Venom. Like, people are going to know Venom based on my movie. Then it was pretty shit. And then, like, Venom 3, they're like, come on, guys. Like, this is the last dance. This is going to be great. I wrote the first 2 movies. This is going to be awesome. And it sucked. And then, like, Madam Web, they were like, this is the one that's really going to, like, break through and touch the hearts of audiences. And then it was dog shit. And the guy who did Morbius was like, bro, like, I know...
I know nobody knows
there was some
Morbius,
like, this is great. Like, you don't need to know who Morbius is. You're going to learn... And he's going to be a fan favorite. I would compare the movie to movies like, I don't know, Captain America and Citizen Kane. And since it's kind of a spin-off to the Venom movies, dare I say it's kind of like, say, The Godfather Part 2. I don't know. Just throwing names out there.
Number 5.
And then Kraven guy's the same fucking way. He's like, this movie's fucking awesome. Forget the other Sony movies, they're ass.
Number 5 is probably Morbius, which is really boring, but resembles a finished movie. And Venom 3 is last. It is blatantly unfinished, and it's just scenes of Tom Hardy in the desert. And there's one funny scene where they do a dance, and then the rest is boring as fucking hell.
Yeah.
So that's my ranking. I think you and me are probably the closest that this Mockbuster cinematic universe has to fans.
We're diehards, and I watched the first Venom movie opening day in Las Vegas. I was one of 2 people in the auditorium. I was at the Green Valley Casino at their upstairs Regal Cinema. And I went to Theater 1, which was their biggest auditorium, and I went to the top, and it was me and 2 really elderly people that were sitting in the front row. And I said, well, this is nice. And then they started, not vaping, they were straight up pulling out, like, Marb Red cigarettes and just chain smoking the whole movie in the theater.
I love it.
I mean, granted, it's Vegas. I didn't know what the rules are. Like, you can smoke in the casino. I can't imagine you're supposed to smoke in a movie theater where you're confined with,
I don't think you're supposed to.
Kids allowed in there. But, like, these 2 old people didn't give a fuck. They probably didn't have an ashtray, so the poor usher had to, like, try to sweep the fucking ash out. Yeah. But I just remember, and like the HVAC was good. I didn't really smell the cigarettes, and I thought it was pretty hysterical. But yeah, my mom dropped me off at the Green Valley Casino. I went upstairs alone, and some guy was just smoking cigarettes with his wife in the front row. And I think that pretty much like surmised my experience with the Sony Marvelverse. Was my introduction to it.
Yeah. I've had a morbid fascination with these since Venom 2. Like Venom 1 I saw and I was like, oh, that was fine, kind of a weird idea, but Venom 2,
Venom had the Eminem song, which was funny.
It did have the Eminem song. Venom, they should have kept doing that. They should have kept bringing Eminem back to make terrible songs.
What if he had like an EP they dropped like now? They're like, okay, we're done, but at least you can have the EP. And then it'll have a Amy Pascal bonus track, and he'll be like, I look at my iPad and see something disturbing. The director wants to put Rhino, $30 million in CGI.
I'm genuinely sad to see this disaster end. Like it was an incredibly let's see, how do you describe it? It was an incredibly bold idea on Sony's part. Bold and misguided to do whatever they were doing. And every time a new trailer dropped for one of these movies, I'd stare at it and be like, this looks like it has the opportunity to be the new worst movie ever made.
Okay, I will say too, like, I don't really watch, like, trailers that much, because, like, I just don't get hyped for movies anymore. I just, like, wait till I see the poster, and I usually show up late enough to movies, because I know the game. Like, I know I can show up a half hour late for a movie and come on right when Nicole Kidman's doing her little spiel. So, that's usually what I do. So, a lot of the times I go into movie, like, free balling, and I only know it's coming out because I watch the AMC app every week to see what's kind of coming, and I check at the start of the year. Before that, I was running the movie theater, so I knew. But now, I check the AMC app, and I'm like, holy fuck, they're making a new Wolfman movie, and that's how I learned. But I don't watch trailers usually, but every time I'd get like a Facebook ad where it'd be like Kraven the Hunter's new fucking trailer dropped, Rhinos Ahoy or something like that, and I'd be like, fuck yeah, I want to see what the Rhino looks like. Then he looks like total dog shit, and Aaron Taylor Johnson's flexing his six-pack, and I'm like, okay.
Every time a trailer comes out for one of these movies, it looks like the new worst movie ever made, and every time it usually is. It's incredible. It's incredible how bad Pascal Pictures is at making movies, and that Amy Pascal is allowed to just continue doing this.
What's amazing,
and this isn't going to stop her. Like, Pascal Pictures isn't over. These weird Spider-Man spin-offs are over for 4 years until they have to keep the rights again.
Oh yeah.
But Amy Pascal is still just going to keep making weird schizophrenic movies on her iPad.
No, I think what they mean by that is like, I think if they start making Spider-Man spin-offs again, like they're going to finish Spider-Verse, but that was a planned trilogy. They'll probably start making spin-off movies without anyone who made them good that are just fucking awful. That's what I'd imagine they're going to try to do, is make cheap spin-off Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to see if they can get Tom Holland on like some Slave 6 movie deal so they don't have to reboot Spider-Man again.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of in a rock and a hard place. Like, do you just reboot Spider-Man again outside of... do you end the deal with the MCU, fire Tom Holland, and just go back to solo Spider-Man movies, presumably with a new actor?
I don't know. I mean, Avi Arad's still kicking. He's still doing his thing. He's still
Avi
produces
Arad's
these
never
weird
fucking
movies.
stopping, bro. Plus, Avi Arad's also started like branching out into awful movies. He did the Borderlands movie this year.
He sure did.
2 stinkers 1 year.
It's nice to know that Sony Pictures is always 3. Madam Web came out this year too, Doug.
And Venom 3. That's 4. Avi Arad's 0 for 4 this year.
We got half of the cinematic universe this
I don't know
year.
how much... Avi Arad's probably like 2 for 85 if we're talking about his track record at this point. But
yeah, Avi Arad's the guy who ruined Spider-Man 3, even though I like that movie.
I love Spider-Man 3.
I think it's really funny.
That is peak. That's like when Sony's schizophrenia actually worked to the advantage.
The problem with Spider-Man 3 is that the parts Sony put in are the worst parts, and the parts that are clearly Sam Raimi are the good parts, because like,
but Sam
once
Raimi,
Venom shows up in the movie, the quality substantially dips.
Well, yeah,
except for the scene where Topher Grace prays in the church for God to kill Spider-Man.
No, but that's the thing is like, Sam Raimi was able to like put out these terrible fucking ideas he was forced to put in. But he was able to, like, do them with some grace, but they're still fucking hilarious. And you can also tell just by the tone of the movie that Sam Raimi's, like, this fucking part. And the mood on the set was like, fuck it, I guess we have to film emo Peter Parker dancing around, so that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And, like, he made a fucking sham out of it, and he even says he just didn't really give a fuck about Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, Sam Raimi had the ability to just make all the weird schizo Amy Pascal shit fun, because he's a guy who makes weird schizo movies that are fun.
Yeah.
And I guess he was just a guy who was really good at channeling Amy Pascal, where all these randoms they pick up that just make dog shit movies cannot
or just
deal
like
with
half of them
the
just haven't
Sony
even fucking
schizophrenia.
made movies. Like, the third Venom movie was made by the lady who wrote the first two, who's like, Amy Pascal liked her or something and said, you get the big promotion, kid, to direct her. It's like, have you ever directed anything? And she's like, no. And she's like, well,
you'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. And then, like, Andy Serkis was like, hey, Sony, I really want to direct a movie. Or maybe they approached him and were like, we have a movie where there's a guy who has a lot of CGI. It's called Venom 2.
That's kind of your specialty.
You do CGI, right? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, do you want to, like, direct the movie? And he's like, sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still going to be sad to see these go. They were,
No, I think it's both hilarious that it's over, because, like, nothing good can last. I think the MCU's proven, like, quality can't last. But, like, at the same time, like, I also think the Sony Marvel movies are totally sustainable to make weird schizo awful fest. Like I'm
Well,
sure
the problem
there's
is
some duds that are just bad.
They've
and
stopped.
Not funny.
They've stopped making money, which is the problem. Because Venom made a lot of money.
Made money
because they
and
tricked
the other
people.
five lost them a lot of money. But
They tricked. Venom came out at the perfect time to maximize how many people it could trick into thinking it was an MCU, and people still liked the MCU. But now the MCU sucks, and everyone stopped caring.
Here's
so
what
now, even if you could trick people, people wouldn't care. But now everyone knows the game is up. Like everyone knows. Like,
yeah.
There's probably like one person in the world who was tricked by Kraven, and almost
I'm
no one
sure
else.
one or two people are tricked. But here's the thing: it's like. But here's the exact trajectory. What happened? Amy's like, let's make a Venom movie, and everyone in the world, except people who were big fans, were tricked. But it also came in 2019, where you could put a cape on my fucking asshole, and it's just me farting for a half hour, and it's gonna make money because it's a superhero movie.
Yeah,
That's a privilege that went away because during COVID, the superhero fad died because everyone forgot about cinematic universes for 2-3 years and didn't feel pressured to watch them.
well, yeah.
Along with streaming, also started putting out like WandaVision and shit, and it's like, oh, now I have to get a fucking streamer. That sounds kind of like a lot of work.
You have to watch Miss
enough.
Marvel, the show for 8-year-old girls, to understand the plot of the next MCU movie, and
It like kind of just inherently like it was over after Endgame, but the show must go on. So
superhero fatigue kicked in, and the quality of the MCU declined sharply.
Fucking Obi just wants to be on camera here.
Yeah, I don't know. They snuck one in, and
Well, then they
nowadays,
made Venom 2, which at least Venom 2, like people were like, well, this is dog shit, and not many people saw it. But the thing was,
they could blame it on COVID.
Venom 2, they blamed it on COVID because every movie, like Christopher Nolan's Tenet, everything, there was like $250 million worth of people willing to watch movies and nothing was coming out. So like every movie made the same amount, which lost money for all of the studios after marketing and shit and remarketing for COVID. And everyone's like, well, we'll just write it off. We'll like get our $700 per dollar we spent on the movie stimulus money.
Yeah.
And it'll be great, and who cares? So then everyone was emboldened. But Sony then decided to make the big gamble, and they said, okay, COVID's over.
We're going to make
1 year,
more
Venom 3, Madam Web, and...
Well, Morbius
Kraven.
only came out a year and a half ago. They released all of these in the span of 2 years, and they greenlit them all at once, shot them all at once, and they're like, these are all coming out in the span of a year and a half. We're going to make $1 billion on each. And they all flopped, and now they're like, oh, fuck.
Venom 3, they left alone. They're like, we're going to try Venom one more time. Who fucking cares? It's Venom. The first one made $1 billion. The second one was COVID. But Morbius happened, but Madam Web and Kraven were already cooking. And then they're like, okay, wait. We need to seriously sidestep Madam Web. And then Madam Web became what it was due to reshoots. And then Madam Web failed too, so they just started reshooting it and trying to make scrambled eggs out of Kraven, which has been shot for like 4 years. And then they put it out to the world and were just announced beforehand when it was said that the movie was going to make like a $15 million opening weekend. They're like, okay, we're done with these. But the movie's coming out, so
yeah,
we're done.
I would have loved to see what happened with these. All these movies set up these huge things that
never happened. Like when fucking Vulture from the MCU jumped universes
into Morbius and became evil again
Venom
for no
jumped
reason.
Universes into the MCU for no reason but a cameo.
Yeah, and then he came back, and then that's just forgotten so that he can fight space aliens. But Venom 3 ends on a cliffhanger. Morbius ends on a cliffhanger. Madam Web,
and
I don't know if you could really call whatever the fuck happened.
It wasn't really a
Madam Web a cliffhanger,
but it was set up for a
something with it, I guess.
Is what they were trying to do. Is they were trying to get the Spider Women to.
And then Kraven had like a whole trilogy written apparently that we're never going to get to see, where he's going to fight the Spider clones, and I don't know. It's a shame. I would have liked to see the schizophrenia
Well, the Spider
continue.
clones are speculation, but that's probably the route they were thinking.
I mean, you can't just have the Sinister Six be the heroes in a movie where they kill Spider-Man, unfortunately, unless he's an evil clone.
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess that's probably what they were going for. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about this mess, this ambitious mess of an idea one more time.
Yeah.
I'm sad to see it go, and I look forward to the next time Sony
On
gets
the bright
cocky enough to do
side,
this again.
Nicolas Cage's Spider Noir has finished filming, so maybe that's a close to this chapter, but they're going to do a bunch of failure Amazon Prime TV series.
That's true.
Because they'll say, wait, this is going to be super successful, let's just shoot 6 shows back at the same time, and then we'll see
apparently,
what happens.
there was a report that came out today that Spider-Verse is, like, completely stalled. Spider-Verse 3, like, the guy who plays Miles Morales hasn't even done his lines yet. So God knows when that's coming out. Like,
I like how they that will come 1 year after the movie that came out 3 years ago. That movie was set for 2023, and it's just not happened.
They haven't even recorded the dialogue yet. You can't animate a movie. Like, I'm sure they do basic action scene animatics and stuff, but you can't do any of the
movies are
lip sync
expensive,
stuff.
and I know Sony Pictures is kind of hemorrhaging money. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel tried to do a buyback play for Spider-Man. Could probably buy him on deep discount after... Because Sony's, made a fuck ton of money on No Way Home and the Spider-Verse movies, but has seemingly burned it on these other 6 movies that failed, and Venom. Yeah. Making 5 total financial and commercial failures is really bad for your brand revenue, your stock, because the brand takes a hit every time, and then also just the fucking amount of hard cash they were just burning away.
Only a couple movies left this year. We're gonna have to start assembling the ranking. We got
Sonic and Lord of the Rings, I think.
Nosferatu too.
Nosferatu.
Oh.
Alright, well, I gotta go home and watch another movie for school. Oh, what?
Would you recommend Kraven the Hunter?
Oh yeah, I forgot. It goes without saying. Well,
I'm gonna give it...
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say... I think we should make this movie make money so we can trick them into making 1 or 2 more flops.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
I want more. I love these. I look more forward to these. At work, I woke up today and I thought, oh, I'm going to see a huge piece of shit. And it really carried me through my work day knowing I was going to... And, with the Marvel movie, I'm like, oh, I'm seeing a Marvel movie tonight.
I was giddy all day.
And then until I see the Marvel Studios logo, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Every time...
I get more excited
every time there's a new MCU movie, I, groan, because I'm like, oh... We're in the post-good MCU, and we're gonna have to see some
And you're like, okay,
Ant-Man 3-tier.
Well, some of them
slop.
are shit, and some of them are just but most of them are just moderately okay, and it's bring back the days when we'd have several shitty super. I don't know if I want all the superhero movies to be shitty, but I love that Sony Pictures would consistently come through with something that was how the fuck was this movie?
Every time I get dragged in to see some shit like the Marvels or Doctor Strange 3 or whatever, I just groan and I'm like, it's gonna be 3 hours of just boring CGI slop, but I get invigorated for these. I'm gonna long shot it and say I absolutely recommend Kraven, because if this somehow makes $1 billion and we get more of these,
Sony reverses it. They're like, don't listen to the fucking rumors, bitches. Chameleon solo movie next month. We're fast tracking that shit.
Oh, I hope so. I don't know. I think it's over, but I wish it wasn't.
Or at least support Spider-Man Noir on Amazon Prime. We gotta give Sony balls again. Who cares? They're not finishing the Spider-Verse trilogy. The only thing
we're
they
not
made
getting
that was
Borderlands
really
2.
good. Avi Arad's running out of money. And it's time that we change his fortunes around so he can waste more money for us to make fun of him some more.
Yeah. Yeah, God bless Avi Arad.
Although, who knows? They're starting fresh with Spider-Man. They left him in a pretty convoluted place because they're not just going to want to do a plain Spider-Man movie, which is actually the safe bet for Spider-Man 4. So maybe old Avi will make something really trashy.
The MCU
I feel like
the MCU is just going to do, they're desperate and don't know what to do, and they're just going to do Spider-Verse again, where Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield come back. And people will be like, yeah, those are the guys. And it'll be boring slop again.
Yeah.
And it won't be funny, boring slop like Kraven.